Welcome, everybody, to the Monday Motivation Spotlight. Another week after another emotional time for Eretz Israel. And I was just checking in terms of the number of episodes. We are on episode 61 of our Monday Motivation Spotlight, which means that the war has been going sadly for 63 weeks. So we started 2 weeks afterwards, and we're still going sadly. But there is hope and there's optimism. And the reason I say this is because we're here to inspire, and we're here to also give exposure to amazing Israelis, whether in business, whether in nonprofit, or making a difference. I'm Lesley Kaplan, welcoming you here every single Monday. And together with our sponsor, Nardis Advisors, we welcome you. So I'm going to be spotlighting and replacing myself with our guest of today. Welcome to Aaron. Nice to see a big smile on your face, Aaron. Aaron Krasner from Anglo Mortgages, who I've had the privilege to meet also in person. Aaron, who is Aaron Krasner? You'll hear from his delightful accent. He made Aliyah in 2001 from London, and he is the founder of Anglo Mortgages, who work with clients all over, based in Israel, and also those that are abroad wanting to make Aliyah, making their dream come possible and come true by buying a house in Israel, buying a property in Israel, making the whole procedure easier for them, and maneuvering the ways, as we say, and not only just getting them the lowest cost mashkanta or mortgage, but also the one that is best for them. So, Aaron, welcome. We're delighted to have you here. Tell us a little bit about what brought you to Israel, your life growing up in London. Were you aware of Israel, making Aliyah? At what stage did it become a reality for you? And of course, maybe some tips on how you share and help others.
Sure, Lesley, good morning. So as you can tell from my accent, I'm from London. So growing up, we were definitely aware of Israel. I grew up, in Israel, we have this sort of like this divide between Haredi and Dati Le'umi. And it doesn't, definitely, at least from what I remember in the 80s and 90s growing up in London, that wasn't like a big divide. There was, maybe there was from, not as from, or something like that. So Israel was certainly on the map. I came here, I think, for the first time to visit when I was 12, which was a very emotional experience. It was really cool. I remember sort of driving up Kish Echad, which at the time was a bit narrower than it is today, and sort of seeing, Yerushalayim, Harim Saviv La, and going to the Kotel, which was quite a powerful experience. And then I came again when I was 16. We did like an Israel tour with my sort of, youth movement. I think it was Ezra. And we visited the country. And I was really sort of started building that connection to Israel through some of those trips and, watching the news and hearing what was going on. I finished high school a little early. I finished high school at the age of 17. And so I kind of because I finished high school a bit early, I had a bit of like extra sort of time, so to speak. I was going to go to yeshiva and maybe spend a bit of time here for a year or two. And then I was going to go back to England and do university and all that kind of stuff in London, where I grew up, where my family was. Some of them live here now. And once I was in yeshiva here, that was 24 years ago. I kind of didn't. I came here and never left. So I fell in love with the country, fell in love with the Israeliness and the Jewishness and the hustle and bustle and all the beautiful, and the country and the countryside and all the beautiful things that we have here. And fast forward 24 years, and I have 5 kids here, and we've lived here a long time, thank God. And yeah, so. By now, some of my parents live here and my in-laws live here. So we were kind of the pioneers at the time of moving here, but thank God it's gone really well.
Wow, sounds good. Sounds good. So tell us, when you first made Aliyah, what were you doing in terms of profession? When did you get into the mortgage business? What made you choose getting into the mortgage business?
Right. So, as I say, so I started off in yeshiva. I was here from the age of sort of 17 and got married at the age of 21. And we were just living here. I was, young. Professionally, so I've always been very good at maths. Maths was something which I loved. I like numbers and I like sort of solving maths problems and things like that. and I also love talking to people, and because I'm from Chutz La'aretz, so to help talking to people or helping people along the journey of settling the land, buying a house here, even if it's not settling the land, but just doing some type of business here. Like a lot of my clients they buy, like let's say they live in Chutz La'aretz, but they want to have a house here. Maybe at some point they'll move here. Maybe maybe they'll never move here. But something connected to Israel. So something mathsy and something which involves helping people and something which involves Israel. It's like you have those Venn diagrams. So the idea of doing something in the real estate field appealed to me. When we were like starting out here, we bought a tiny house, which it sounds like it's such a dated thing, because to buy a property in Israel nowadays is like, it's more expensive than America in many ways. It's more expensive than London in many ways. Certainly more than South Africa. And but at the time, 20 years ago, that was not the case. You could buy things for like a fraction. So we bought a very small place in Yerushalayim, and we rented it out. It wasn't big enough for us to live in, but it was small, and it was like our wedding money and a bit of extra money from my parents. Like we scraped together, to buy something. And like I say, I was about 22 years old, 21, something like that. I can't remember exactly. And we didn't really understand what was going on in the contract. And we had to come up with the mortgage, and we needed help. And I was using somebody that I didn't feel like I understood what was happening and when it was happening and how it needed to happen. And it wasn't the funnest experience, to be totally honest. And it occurred to me like, hey, maybe this is something which I can do myself. I've got a lot of friends sort of around the same kind of age and stage who are looking to buy. Maybe I can start doing their mortgages. And, that's how I started. For the first 2 years, I was basically only doing friends' mortgages. And then it sort of branched out to like parents of friends, and then friends of parents of friends. And Pella Ozem, that's what I'm still doing now. I think I'm coming up to my 18th year as a mortgage broker.
Wow. Look, as we know, word of mouth is nothing like word of mouth, because if someone's happy with our services, then they're going to recommend us to anyone else. Totally. And we have a realtor in the room, Marcy. I don't know if the two of you have connected. So if not, you should definitely connect. And Marcy's she can also be, Marcy's up in the north. So she can certainly testify, how Marcy, how it is so essential to help, and we work so in hand, realtors with mortgage brokers, to be able to assist in people in buying their dream house. Right. Do you want to tell us some of the major challenges that people have, or give us some tips as well, in the short time that we have?
So you mentioned realtors, mentioned Marcy. I think that when my company is called Anglo Mortgages, and the reason why I called it that is because it's not just the English language. The English language is also the English mindset. If you're doing business here in Israel, and you're Anglo, so you have a certain set of business, a certain business mindset, a certain set of expectations, a certain way of speaking, a certain way of being spoken to. And so with the real estate transaction specifically, people talk to me, about whatever the specific problems that they have of, how to find the house and how to get through the process and so on and so forth. But there's always a meta challenge of building a team of people who can get you from A to B in a nice way. So that means having a lawyer that you feel comfortable with, having a realtor that you feel comfortable with, having a mortgage broker that you feel comfortable with, having somebody handle the foreign exchange transaction, that you can express yourself in your own language, in your own idiom, and you can feel that even if this is a process that you don't fully understand or fully master, you've done what you can do, which is sort of put together a team of people who can fight your corner and who can make you feel comfortable and who you can trust to sort of look after your interests while you're doing, when people, I always tell people like, you're not buying a pizza, you're buying real estate, you're buying a house in Israel. It's a major investment. It's a big deal. There's a lot of money on the table. So having a team is one of, I think, people's big challenges. In terms of tips and stuff like that, feel free to tell me what you have and tell me what you think of
Yeah,
the.
no, anything. The major challenges that people have,
Right.
certain tips, certain questions, things that people don't know.
Okay. Well, one thing is, I think, always the down payment. I think that a loan to value ratio makes a big difference in Israel. Nowadays, in real estate in Israel is quite expensive. And so I think one big challenge that a lot of people have is sort of finding their budget. How much cash do I need to put down? How much do I need to earn in order to get approved for the loan amount that I want? And how much is my monthly repayment going to be? I think those are the sort of three big questions that when people are calling me, they're looking, they're looking to get answered. So, so I always tell people, like, those are basically the three, like, triangulation points that you need in order to start working out what kind of house you can afford.
Right, right.
So in
And
terms of
and so many young couples today, and I see there's even a comment here, that it's not easy to buy, and we know that it's not easy to buy. However, there are ways of making it work. I know it's different in Host Lesley,
absolutely.
in South Africa, I think there was a 90% bond that we used to get.
Right.
So
Right,
it was
right,
so different. But there are many places in Israel where you can invest too, even if it's not your place to live, like in the North, Marcy sees these kind of properties, many in the South as well. So even if it's not the apartment that we're going to be living in, I'm sure that many of your clients actually buy as an investment and keep on renting.
Absolutely. Firstly, absolutely. Secondly, I think people don't always people sometimes underestimate the power of leverage. Like, for example, if you would maybe ideally like to buy a 2 million shekel property, but at the moment, all you can afford is a 1 million shekel property. So you need a 250,000 shekel, which 250,000 shekels is a lot of money to put down. Okay. But let's say you put, that's what you have. So if you put down a 250,000 shekel on a house and you buy it for 1 million shekel and the property goes up by, I mean, just talk rough numbers, the property goes up to 1.3. So the property itself has gone up 30%. Okay, that's a lot over, let's say, 2, 3 years. Okay, so let's say it went up to 1.3. But I think what people don't always understand is that if the property, it sounds like you've made only 20% or 30%, but if you only put down cash of 250,000 shekels, if you were to then sell that house and buy your next place, now you've got 250 that you put down on the property plus the 300 of capital growth. Well, now you've got 500,000 shekel, and now you can maybe, yes, afford to buy that 2 million shekel house because that's the power of leverage, and that's the power of a mortgage. When you make when the property goes up in value, you're making money not just on the money that you put down, but also on the money that you've borrowed. So, I think people don't always appreciate that the place that you'd ideally like to buy, you may not necessarily be able to buy straight away. But if you
Right.
if you get started on something smaller, something up north or something down south, or or something small in an expensive city, you can do what's called building equity. And as well as you let the mortgage run as well, you build equity. So sometimes, a lot of times people I speak to are people who are buying their home only after, let's say, 10 years or something like that. But in those 10 years, they've been buying and selling and building and so forth. It's not only about saving up cash for a down payment. Sometimes it's about buying, the interim house and so forth.
Right. And let's talk about, prices have gone up. We have a question here. Isn't the 2 million home now selling for 2.5 million? Yes, not all places the price goes up at the same rate. Have you seen that with a lot of your clients?
Definitely that there are some places up north which have done fabulously, and there are some places up north where it feels like it's the land that time forgotten and prices haven't really quite moved. So obviously, it's not absolutely uniform. My general feeling is Look, property prices have generally speaking gone up, but my feeling is that Anglos look for an Anglo community. There aren't that many Anglo communities in Israel.
Right. And they're
And
more
I think
developing
that if you're
in
buying in
certain
a place,
areas.
I beg your pardon?
They're a lot more developing, like Marcy just wrote, there are more developing in the world
Absolutely,
and in certain
absolutely. I mean, what's
areas.
going on in Karmei Gut at the moment? That's a relatively new development. Not everybody's heard of it. It's been going on for 2-3 years, something like that.
Right.
That is a new, I live in Ramat Bet Shemesh. That is a new Ramat Bet Shemesh, and it's significantly cheaper and it's significantly new. And it's, you don't necessarily see things like that. I don't remember hearing about Karmei Gut. 3, 4, maybe it existed. Maybe there was a community there I didn't know about.
Yeah, I think I only started hearing about it in like the last year,
Yeah,
maybe.
right,
No,
right.
just
But
a bit more than a
that's a
year,
massive
year and a
thing.
half.
That's a
Right.
massive thing. And there are communities up north which are growing. Absolutely. So
Right. And for us, our communities become partially or largely our family if we don't have family living here in Israel. And that's a big, big thing. What keeps Anglos here is being part
yep.
of a community. And that
Yeah.
can make a total difference to your lifestyle, whether your aliyah is successful or not successful. I know
Yeah.
many people that have been unhappy, have moved and then been delightfully happy, and some that have gone back to the original country because of maybe the community wasn't totally right for them.
Yeah, yeah. Look, it's almost a bit like a shidduch. You need God's help to sort of make sure that you land yourself in the place which is supportive and right for you. And sometimes you get it right the first time, and sometimes it takes a learning curve to work out what it is that you need. I think Anglos, like for example, like shuls, Bet Knesset. Like I think the Anglos relates to a Bet Knesset with the Chutz La'aretz mentality that a Bet Knesset's like a community center in a way. It's a place to daven, but it's not just a place to daven. It's a place to
Right,
go for a
exactly.
kiddush. It's a place where you meet your friends. It's a place to chat. It's a
Right,
place where
the whole social, your whole social
right,
function.
right. When I was living in Yerushalayim, I don't feel like the Israelis all necessarily viewed the shul in quite that way. I think that maybe they had other, outlets for it, but I think that
Correct. The
that's
cities are, it doesn't mean that there are no communities there, but they're very, very
yeah,
different.
right,
Which is
right,
why
right.
a lot of these outlying places, the fact that the properties are lower in price there, and you have the beauty of a community, are something that many people, should consider. The fact that also a lot of us are able to work from home or from anywhere, in the country or in the world right now. These are all things that make the outer areas more popular.
Absolutely. I think Zoom has absolutely changed the working world. I know that I think that's kind of retrenching a little bit. I think people want especially like corporations insisting people are working a bit more from the office now. But I think the hybrid method of working is very popular, and I don't think that's going away. So if somebody lives, like I have a friend of mine who lives in Harish, where there's an Anglo community there. Property
Right.
prices were way cheaper than Ramat Bet Shemesh and Yerushalayim and Tel Aviv and Ra'anana and so forth. And they commute into Tel Aviv 2 days a week. But so that's 2 days of going on the train. And the trains in Israel are also developing as well. Think the
Right.
transportation is
So all in
improving
all,
too.
right, it just
So
aids to.
it's moving in the right direction, I think. And that's for people who are looking, who still haven't quite found their forever home and a forever community, things are moving in the right direction, in my opinion.
Right. No, I can definitely see that. So tell us a little bit more about some of the challenges or maybe any interesting stories that you've had I'm sure you've had many interesting stories or funny stories, challenging stories where Aaron and your team swept down and saved somebody that
Right.
a deal may not have gone through if it hadn't have been for that.
Yeah. So look, it's a very rewarding job. It's a very rewarding job because you work intensely with people for let's call it a 2-3 month period where and it kind of has a very clearly defined beginning, middle, and end. And the end is, mazel tov, here's your keys to your house. So it's definitely rewarding in that sense. But there's always a challenge to overcome. I think, seeing people who let's say thought that they couldn't make it work, but did, is extremely rewarding. And a lot of the times it's sometimes just a creative, it's just a creative idea. Like for young couples, okay, let's say that their income isn't there, but they're able to take on a larger monthly repayment, let's say because they've got parental support or something like that. So sometimes, if you give people the idea that your parents, if you're, a young couple, that the parents can be co-signers on the loan, sometimes that's like the light bulb moment that goes, you know what, well, we can actually make this work now. And that's quite beautiful. So sometimes it's actually people on the opposite end of the schedule, of like the life cycle, let's say. Right now I'm working on a mortgage for a 76-year-old. Okay, and we're getting him a 15-year loan. That's till the age of 91, and there's no life insurance requirements, and people don't know that that's necessarily possible.
Right. And the fact it's only, am I right? It's only a couple of years ago that this whole thing came in for mortgages over 60 years old.
When I started, there's an idea that we don't want the mortgage running beyond a certain age. Okay. Thank God, over the course of my career, that age has been pushed back. It started off being, I think, 70, we can push it to 75. Then it became 75, we can push it to 80. Now it's 85, no problem. And like I'm saying, you can sometimes push it, till the age of 90. So sometimes, and that's another thing also, sometimes it's actually quite nice when you see somebody who's spoken to, let's say, one bank, and they said, yeah, I've spoken to the banks, and the banks say, I can borrow till the age of 80, and I need to be earning 20,000 shekel. And you say, well, that's true at the one bank that you spoke to. But guess what? If you shop around, you can go to the age of 90 and you only need to be earning 13,000 shekel. And the life insurance issue that you thought was an issue actually at this bank isn't. So it's always, if you've got the experience and you've got the range of options and the range of possibilities, and just seeing somebody's problem melting away or being overcome is actually, it's one of the most beautiful parts of the job.
Right, absolutely. And, I've seen firsthand because for many, many years now, I've been coaching business owners, and realtors are among them. And I've seen that realtors and mortgage brokers, many people think, well, I don't need to use them. I can save the commission, the amalot, and I can buy my house without them. But both a realtor and using a mortgage broker actually saves you money in the long run because of the negotiations that they do and that you do on their behalf. So tell us a little bit about this, maybe a story about a client who thought that they didn't need you and, for the amounts that you charge, and then you actually saved them way more than that.
Look, the truth is there's a very small minority of people who are like obsessed with throwing themselves into the task and who love going from one bank to the next bank to the next bank and seeing if they can do things by themselves. And there are people like that. I'm not saying that they don't exist. In 2024, 52% of all mortgages in Israel, that's not talking about Anglos, that's not talking about, 52% of all mortgages in Israel were done through brokers. So, I think, the Israelis as well understand that there's something there.
There's something, it's not just about the language. So especially for the Anglo who doesn't have the language tools, even if you're fluent, there's a lot more.
Exactly. I always tell people that if I save you, I don't know, 0.3, 0.4% on the interest rate, or even 0.2, if you add that up over a 30-year period, that's hundreds of thousands of shekels. But that's not the main reason to use me. Like, I think that's a nice side benefit to save a few 100,000 shekel. I found, in my experience, it's getting the loan structure right. It's a bit like I mentioned before, shadchan. It's getting the right loan product from the right bank that suits your temperament and suits your financial situation. Like that's the magic. That's the magic. Also, getting that done at the best possible rates in the smoothest possible way, that's like the icing on the cake. So
Right,
it's,
right. We actually have a question about it. Like, what do you normally recommend, or does it depend? Link to prime, link to the cost of living. What is
right,
your recommendation?
right. So I've come to the realization that there's no right answer, because the only way to have the right answer is to know the future. And we don't know the future, and we're never going to know the future. And even with AI and all the models and everything, I think that the future is unknowable. So what I always do, this is more of my approach with clients, is I'll always sit with them, usually over a Zoom, usually in front of a spreadsheet, so you can see the movements. So I always tell people, so whether you use me or not, this is the way to do it, is to understand the advantages and the disadvantages of the different options. So you understand that thoroughly, and you understand the consequences of it. You put a few different models together, and you say, how much would it cost if I did it like this? How much would it cost if I did it like that? And so forth. And I tell people that when you go through that process, one of these items is going to jump out as you as saying, this sits well with my gut. And I think that that is the magic moment where you can say that's the right mortgage for you, because our gut feelings are like our own algorithms, our own way of knowing what's the right thing for us, what matches our risk tolerance, what sounds manageable, what's going to help us sleep at night, what are we going to be, comfortable with. And
In other words, it's not a copy paste for everyone. You look at each situation.
absolutely not. It's so funny. Like, I have a range of clients who will say, why would anybody not take anything other than 100% fully fixed rate? Because how can you not worry about rates jumping up? And clients say, how could anybody want to take fixed rate mortgages at 5% when 3 years ago they were at 2%? And they're both right, but they're both coming with their own sort of, histories and financial lives and things which are important to them. So you have to take that into account, because we're human beings.
Right, right, absolutely. Well, I guess that's exactly one of the reasons why one should negotiate with the professional. As we say, is that like with anything in life, we're specialized in a certain thing. So when we're dealing with something complicated, why would we want to do it ourselves? Go to the expert, right?
Absolutely.
If with anything in life, if you want to install a kitchen, are you going to get a kitchen company to come install it? Or are you going to try do it yourself? There may be some that will do it themselves and will succeed very well. But on the other hand, you don't know exactly what the outcome is.
Exactly.
Right, absolutely. Any closing sentence, closing thought, just for a quick minute?
Look, I think it's been, you started off mentioning, you've been running this since the war. It's been a tough year, but I just really, whenever I meet people, whenever I speak to people, there's so many inspiring people. We're walking around in a country of heroes. The people who are fighting, the people who are supporting people who are fighting, the people whose parents are fighting, people whose children are fighting. And I think everybody in their own way is contributing to something amazing in this country. And whatever your business is, whatever whatever it is that you're doing here, I just think that we're here making history. And we say Am Yisrael Chai. It's just, you see it every day. Am Yisrael Chai. And it's such a beautiful thing that we're, in the real estate, I watch people literally build the country, but everybody in their family, in their community, in the contributions that they make to the country is building it. And it's really just an amazing thing. So, I see it a lot, and I'm sure everybody listening sees it. And so Am Yisrael Chai.
Right, absolutely, absolutely. I'm Israel Chai, and on that exceptional note, and I always actually end off saying that, so you actually took my words from me.
There you go.
I'm Israel Chai. Firstly, Aaron Krasner from Anglo Mortgages. Thank you very much for joining us. If anyone would like to reach you, just Google Anglo Mortgages, Aaron Krasner, and I'm sure that you're happy to answer any questions if anybody has anything. Thank you for being an inspiring guest. Thank you for helping us build our very special and wonderful country, and for making it possible for so many people to live here and buy a property in Israel. Here we go. For those of you live, there's actually the link here, anglomortgages.com. But if you didn't catch it, or if you're watching the recording, you can just look at it online. Thank you again to our sponsor, to Nardis Advisors. I'm Lesley Kaplan, episode 61. which means we hope the war will end soon, and all our hostages wishing them a safe return. I'm Israel Chai. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you live next week on the Monday Motivation Spotlight. Have a great, safe day.